Welcome to Tiffany Turned On. I'm your host, Tiffany Anton. I'm a psychotherapist specializing in sex and relationships. I hope to help you get turned on in life as well as inside of your bedroom. I love talking about sex, which of course would make sense since I'm hosting a podcast in relation to sex and relationships. But I was thinking about how long I have loved talking about sex. And I believe even back in high school, I tended to discuss sex, ask a lot of questions, and of course being interested in the dating process and trying out sex for myself. When I first entered college at Ball State, I initially thought I wanted to be a forensic psychologist, and I attended some criminal justice courses and I felt relatively foreign and out of place. I then women and gender studies classes and felt totally at home. Many people will ask, how did you become a sex therapist? It's because I decided that sex is so much more fun than discussing and understanding crime. I want to talk today about the benefits of sex. I'm influenced by the article, "You should definitely be having more sex because science says so." And this was in the Stylecaster webpage. So I want to encourage you to have more sex. My joke that I have with men is that I am interested in saving your life, like literally saving your life. And that comes from statistics saying that if males are sexual 3 times per week, it reduces their chance of heart attack and stroke by 50%. See, this is life-changing. So I want your men to speak up. I want the men out there to engage in self-pleasure and to speak up about their partner so as a team they can work on life-saving fun activity. Research is showing us that having good sex is linked to improved cardiac health and lowering blood pressure. In particular, it was sexual intercourse that had the significant impact on lowering systolic blood pressure. Since sex is good for cardiac health, unfortunately this shows just in men, not in women, I wanted to emphasize a cardiac benefit that could contribute in helping women, and that is based upon exercise. Now, there's some different things that state how many calories that you burn per sex session, but during a 30-minute romp, you have the possibility of burning 85 to 100 calories. Now, if you want to bring this up, ladies, and men as well, one of the suggestions by Jaya Kensbach, a Los Angeles-based sexologist, she suggests to try a position, so this would be a female on top position, where you squat on top of your male partner and then bounce up and down. This is a great workout for your thighs and butt, and it can burn up to 207 calories in 30 minutes. I think I would much rather do that for 30 minutes than be on the elliptical. What I do think the ladies will love is a research that was done at the Royal Edinburgh Hospital in Scotland. I don't know how many participants they had or anything, but I'm going to take this and run with it because I think most of us would like to age gracefully. So this study found that older people who were enjoying lots of sex with a steady partner 4 times a week on average were perceived to be 7 to 12 years younger than their actual age. They looked at participants in a one-way mirror and guessed their ages. And this is what they found, that the hormones released during regular sex, like testosterone and estrogen, keep the body looking young. So for us ladies, estrogen has been shown to give us softer skin and shiny hair. Both of us are getting benefits. So the males are decreasing risk of heart attack and stroke. And in females, we are potentially slowing down the aging process, or at least the perceived age that we actually are. An additional benefit to regular sex for the ladies is that it has the potential, while having an orgasm during your sexual experience, to reduce pain. If you have a headache, have sex. If you're on your menstrual cycle and cramping, have sex. According to a professor at Rutgers University, orgasms can block pain. It releases a hormone that helps raise your pain threshold. In regards of menstruation and sex, endocrinologists at Columbia and Stanford found that women who have sex at least once a week have more regular menstrual cycles than those who have sex less frequently. So we're looking at the benefit of sex and orgasm to reduce and manage pain, as well as regulating our cycle. And let me go back to looking younger. Really? Ladies, we need to be stepping up the plate here. One of the reasons that women's libidos can be lower is our tendency to be extra stressed. Andrea Pennington, she talked about how women are missing out on having mind-blowing climaxes because we are too stressed. And 90% of our orgasms are in our mind. So if we're stressed out and we want to come, the chances of that are a bit low and definitely lower than what we might enjoy. Ms. Pennington states that climaxing should be prioritized by women as it helps with our personal empowerment, self-acceptance, and self-love. She wants us to be having 3 orgasms a week as a minimum. So I mentioned the 3 orgasms a week being beneficial to males' cardiovascular health, and we're not seeing much cardiovascular difference in women, with the exception of the exercise piece. It seems here that we can experience benefits from 3 orgasms a week that are linked to stress relief, from depression and anxiety. She even postulates it can make us nicer. And it can be a pain reliever. And as we know, being sexual with our partners and experience an orgasm releases these feel-good chemicals, and we do tend to feel closer to our partner, and that's why it's linked to a higher rate of relationship satisfaction. One of the reasons that sex brings us closer to our partner is that we release the chemical oxytocin. Let's talk about chemicals. Feel-good chemicals. Most of us are aware of serotonin and dopamine, but oxytocin plays a big role in bonding and love. Let's talk about oxytocin. And oxytocin's goal is to help us bond. And this is released when we breastfeed our children. It's also released when we experience an orgasm with our partner. That's one of the reasons I joke around about the character Samantha in Sex and the City, because she tended to enjoy multiple romps with multiple men and stay emotionally disconnected. And my joke was, I don't know how you're having the best sex of your life and staying disconnected from these men, because you're releasing oxytocin and that bonds us. So maybe she was using psychological strategies to keep herself distant, but we know that chemically she was likely to have experienced bonding with some of these gentlemen. And yes, I'm aware it was just a show. Yet there are individuals out there who display similar behaviors or have a similar lifestyle to Samantha in the free love approach and feeling very empowered, not feeling the need to have a man consistent in their lives, yet maybe aren't aware of the chemical release that causes bonding. This can be frustrating to us when we're in a friends with benefits scenario, when we're intending just to keep it within the friend zone, but that damn oxytocin is getting in the way and we're bonding with them. And again, we're trying to keep it in the friend zone, not in the love zone. As ladies with frequent sexual activity, and again, that would be up to 3 times per week with our partner, or being sexual with ourselves, the benefit is to our pelvic floor muscles. And when we strengthen our pelvic floor muscles, we can reduce back pain, stress incontinence, like the I sneezed and I just pissed myself. I remember a time that I was running down a hill with my son and we were having a competition as to who could get down the hill fastest. Well, I might have been able to win that race, but the problem was midway through, I was just tinkling my pants. And so I'm cracking up, standing there cross-legged as I had stress incontinence. So being sexual can help our pelvic floor muscles reduce back pain, potentially help with stress incontinence, and as I mentioned before, helping with cramping during our cycle. Here's some cool facts for both ladies and men, is that being sexual actually creates neuron growth. So we've got these researchers in Maryland and South Korea stating that sexual activity boost neuron growth in the brain, and particularly the hippocampus, which is linked to memory function. Tracy Shore is a psychologist at the Center of Collaborative Neuroscience at Rutgers University. Her quote is, "You can make new cells with exercise, Prozac, or sex. Just make more cells and keep being more alive." Another benefit to having regular sex is our ability to more easily relax and sleep. Now, we may notice that with our male partners, that you have a good sexual experience, and then the next thing you know, within 3 minutes, they're snoring. Sometimes that can be frustrating because we would like round 2, or we would like to be able to get up and go with a walk together. But again, it's just a tendency for men, but they will be falling asleep pretty fast on us. Orgasms trigger a release in prolactin, which is a calming hormone, and it reaches its highest level when we're in sleep. So if we want to get that prolactin, have that orgasm, have that nice sleep. In the You Should Be Having More Sex article, it says in particular about how sleep is improved with sex. Sarah Lynn Mark, she's an associate professor of medicine at Yale School University. She points out that the sex boosts the production of euphoric oxytocin, again, I mentioned that earlier, that's bonding, and decreases the production of the stress hormone cortisol. This shift leaves your body in a relaxed state, making it easier for you to fall asleep. Plus, our estrogen levels, meaning ladies, also increase, which can enhance our REM cycle for a deeper sleep, and this study was published in the Journal of Women's Health. There was another study done in the U.S. about money and happiness, and it states that sex actually makes people happier for a longer period of time than money. I don't know if I would choose a great romp over the lottery. I think I would say let's go for the lottery and then have a great romp. But if we look at day-to-day living, sex making us happier for a longer period of time than money, I believe that's based upon healthy relationships and feeling good inside of our body. And money can't buy that. Money can't buy our self-esteem, can't buy pleasure, can't buy strong relationships. Being sexual can surprisingly affect our immune system as well. And this is even accurate in solo sex. There was research completed at Wilkes University that found that college students who had sex once or twice a week had higher levels of certain antibodies that provided a boost to their immune system compared to students who had less sex, and brings us closer to our partner. In review of the benefits of sex, it's saving our lives. It's getting us moving, motivating, and connecting. Being sexual for men 2 to 3 times per week reduces the risk of heart attack and stroke by 50%. Sex benefits us in exercise, the progression of aging in regards of how people perceive how we look. It can create a sense of happiness that can be more so than money. It helps us sleep, to reduce pain. Let's not forget how it boosts our neural growth and memory functioning. Just merely at the age of 45, I'm concerned about my memory. So if I think of sex might help my brain, that definitely gives me an extra edge of motivation. Now that we've discussed the benefits of having a regular sex life, and I hope that this encourages you to do so, I want it to shake up your bedroom. I want you and your partner to connect. I'd like to look now at how not having sex affects us. We often don't think about the negatives of what might happen if we're not regularly sexual. As I've talked about the benefits, we're going to talk about the not-so-great things that can happen in your body when you decide not to be sexual. And again, you don't have to have a partner to be sexual. Sex with yourself is important as well. Having sex 10 or less times per year is considered a sexless marriage. Some of the negatives of not having sex are particular for women is that what happens in our vulva tissue. I would really like to emphasize how much not having sex negatively affects us ladies. So listen more to learn about what happens to our vulva when we, in essence, forget it's there. Listen more, learn, and enjoy your privates. particularly if we're perimenopausal or menopausal. And we have thinning of the labia minora, that's the small lips, the labia majora. We have extra drying out in our vagina and the lining inside of our vagina, which is called the rugae. It doesn't feel soft like the inside of our cheek would. So if we stuck our finger in the inside of our cheek and felt it, it feels bumped and ridged. And so I kind of look at it as an accordion. And so if you get the accordion image in your brain, it makes a lot of sense because we got to get a baby out of there. So if we think about the vaginal canal and its ridges, we're not having regular penetrative sex via a penis, a dildo, or fingers. That rugae, so that accordion-like tissue, can grow together. And you want to think about pain, that is pain, because there's not going to be any stretching to accommodate an insertion of a finger, a toy, or a penis, but it's going to feel more like sticking that toy or a penis inside of your nostrils. You notice there's not much flexibility there? So even for those of you who are divorced, single, widowed, I'd encourage you to continue being sexual with yourself on a regular basis to keep the blood flowing in your genitals and to keep your vaginal canal open. Menopausal and postmenopausal women, I highly recommend that they use a lubricating substance, particularly Replens, which you can get over the counter at like Walgreens or CVS. So when we're having limited sexual experiences and our vulva tissue is becoming like a tissue paper and our vaginal canal can start to really tighten up, but not in a positive way. So it tightens to the point that you can have excruciating pain, any sort of penetration, and that tissue can tear. Not being sexual for a long time can reduce our ability to experience arousal, to get erect, or to have blood flow. It can take us a lot longer to achieve an orgasm. It increases the chances of having erectile dysfunction. I really want men to be practicing blood flow. Again, single, widowed, with a partner with lower libido. I'd really like for you to be masturbating about 3 times per week to keep that regular blood flow going. In another podcast, I'm going to be talking about a study that says men should be having 21 orgasms per month to reduce their rate of prostate cancer by 33%. So stay tuned for that one in the future. But as of now, my recommendation is having an orgasm for males 3 times per week to get the blood flowing, to clean out the prostate, and just to keep a nice, strong erection. Because you really can lose both girth and inches when you ignore your genitals. As I mentioned earlier, stress can get in the way of really having a pleasurable sexual experience. But we also know by limiting your sex life that can increase your stress. All of us have experienced some form of stress. But are we aware just how much stress affects our sex life? Listen more and learn about stress and its effects on our body, how it shuts down our experience of having pleasure and turns on the survival response in our brain. This affects erection for men and arousal and orgasm in women. Listen more to learn about stress getting in the way of good sex. Some studies will show that people who haven't had sex in a long time, I don't know what they defined as a long time, have higher blood pressure in response to stress, higher levels of cortisol. And here's a trap that men in particular can get into with stress and erections. So Dr. Andrew Golasek, I don't know if I'm saying that right, he was talking about the stress-sex response. And sometimes you lose your erection simply because you're stressed out, right? We can't always be hard. But what happens is, let's say that you're really stressed out at work and you come home and you're interested in being sexual with your partner and you don't have an erection. That sets you up for performance anxiety. So instead of thinking, I was really stressed that day, my cortisone levels were really high, nothing's going to get me there. I was going to say Bo Derek, an image of Bo Derek or Farrah Fawcett wasn't going to get me there. But boy, is that aging me. That reminds me of like middle school, high school age and my male friends having posters of those ladies on their wall. So when you're not understanding that the role that stress plays in your erection and you're just viewing it as self-judgment, then you're going to have anticipatory anxiety. Understanding that when we're stressed, our blood vessels don't fully dilate, and the sphincter fails to constrict, which increases our chance of erectile dysfunction. And our hormones can be really disrupted as well. So our endorphins, which block pain, they don't respond during stress because we have to get into that fight, flight, survive mode. So we're going to block the positive hormones, and we're going to increase cortisol, which also reduces testosterone. So chronic stress affects all of our sex hormones. So that's us ladies as well. Because again, as I mentioned, that we're producing such high level of cortisol, and it's at the expense of sex. Our body shuts down sex mechanisms to better deal with our urgent needs. Andrew, of this article here that was in Psychology Today, he makes some suggestions, of course. So he suggests when we're stressed out and our body doesn't function like we want it to, really communicate. What are your fears and your desires? Get off of intercourse or penetration focused and on more the full body touching experience. Utilizing techniques to reduce sexual problems, changing your thought patterns and your behaviors. Exercising, of course, is good for all of us. It boosts libido. It increases and improves blood flow. And he wants to remind us that our major sexual problems are often linked to stress, anxiety, and tension, which is reflected in the earlier comment I made from Andrea Pennington. She reports that 90% of an orgasm is in our head, well, women's head. And so if we're distracted or worried, we're not going to have an orgasm. That we have to be mentally turned on. That if in our head we're worried, we didn't feel like we finished our task for the day, or what are our kids going to eat tomorrow, how she looks and how she smells, then it's going to be much harder to be able to experience pleasure, and in particular, having an orgasm. Now, listeners, I challenge you to decide, what does your sex life look like right now? And if you changed it up and thought, this is the sex that I need, desire, and deserve, what would that be? And I want you to be open to sharing that with your partner. So sex isn't a task. It isn't we're giving all the time and there's no sense of receiving. I've just listed multiple reasons why being sexual regularly with your partner is beneficial. I urge you to step up to the plate, to be sexual, to connect, and to really feel alive. If you enjoyed listening to my podcast today, please rate it on iTunes. Go to my podcast, The Tiffany Turned On, and see if there are any other episodes that turn you on or give you tips and benefits to change up things in your bedroom. The music for Tiffany Turned On is provided by Kumasi Afrobeat. If you're interested in more of their music, you can find them online at kumasiafrobeat.com. KUMASIAFROBEAT.com. They are New Orleans' full Afrobeat band. They play to make you move. If you liked what you heard in today's episode, and you want to learn more about me, check out my website at neworleanssextherapy.com. I also have a TED Talk entitled I Love Pleasure from TEDx Vermilion Street.